I'm sorry, Catherine. I truly apologize. Those guys aren't family at all. Oh, I feel so pathetic. The moment I saw his rare tears flowing, I made a huge decision in my heart. I paid off $200,000 in debt, rebuilt my in-law's small diner in the countryside, and even built a two-family home for my mother-in-law who needed care. Yet she wouldn't let us live in the new house and intends to hand over both the shop and the house to my brother-in-law. Such a ridiculous thing. This shouldn't be allowed. I'll make them regret this. I won't tolerate it any longer. I can't forgive them anymore. Thinking that, I managed to suppress my trembling hand in anger and took out my smartphone from my jacket pocket. It was time for revenge on those who used and mocked us. I am Catherine, turning 30 this year. I work as a business consultant at a company in California. My husband Tom is the same age as me and works at a popular restaurant where his skills are recognized. He works hard as a deputy chef. He doesn't talk much usually, but he's a very hard worker, kind, and sincere husband. Today, we were dining with Emily, our mutual close friend, at our home. Is that true? You're both going back to your hometown? With a wine glass in hand, Emily's eyes widened in surprise as she asked again. Yes, that's right. My father-in-law fell ill, so we decided to go back, and Tom will take over the family's diner. I feel bad for Catherine quitting her job, but the family diner is an important place for me, and seeing my father there was the reason I aspired to be a chef. That's important too. But even with a beautiful dish Tom prepared in front of her, Emily didn't dig in but instead poked at her food, looking like she wanted to say something. Childhood friends Emily and Tom are from a coastal district far from California. Emily moved to California for further studies and met me when we entered the same university. Coming from a wealthy family and being a cheerful, laddie-like person, Emily had a different personality than me, but we strangely got along well and became best friends. And then Emily said, "You two are definitely a perfect match," and introduced her childhood friend Tom to me. But Catherine, you're doing great as a business consultant, and Tom works at a famous French restaurant, right? It seems a waste to give up the situation. Moreover, you both have dreams for the future, don't you? Thank you, Emily. Thanks for your concern. But with a laptop, I can work from anywhere now, and I want to be by Tom's side and support him as much as I can. Okay, I get it. Good for both of you. When I visit our hometown, let me taste Tom's delicious cooking. Thanks, Catherine. We still have wine left. I'll get a refill. As Tom left the table, Emily whispered to me with a worried look. Thank you, Emily, for your concern. I know it won't be easy, but I'll do my best. I'm grateful to have such wonderful friends. Though I'm apprehensive about the uncertain future, I believe everything will be okay. Time passed since our farewell party with Emily, and we, as a couple, moved to Tom's hometown. Little did we know about the trials that awaited us. Upon hearing that my father-in-law was hospitalized, I went to visit him. He looked much frailer than I expected, lying in his bed. It seems I don't have much time left, the doctor told me. It's terminal cancer, my father-in-law, who is as reticent as Tom, said quietly. I had braced myself for such news, but hearing it from him directly was a tremendous shock. He was always hardworking, with his main hobby being collecting unique antique ceramics and dishes. He had always been kind to Tom and cherished him since he was young. It's okay, Dad. Focus on your treatment without worrying, Tom reassured him, holding his father's hand. Tom, you found a good wife, my father-in-law said, just as I was on the verge of tears, moved by how considerate he was even towards me. A shrill, loud voice echoed throughout the hospital room. Oh, excuse me, if you're here, you should have let me know. Both of you, come over here. I have something important to discuss. We were surprised. I turned around to find it was my mother-in-law, even though she suffers from high blood pressure. Raising her voice like that, I worried it might increase her blood pressure even more. Born into a prestigious family that owns multiple lands in their hometown, she was pampered by her grandparents. Maybe because of that upbringing, she's quite self-centered. My father-in-law, who married into her family, was always submissive and followed her every command. Furthermore, just because John, the younger brother, resembled her, she favored him. On the other hand, she seemed to neglect Tom, who looked more like his father. I've always felt that the overbearing mother-in-law and I weren't the best match. You know, I have something to discuss about the shop. Well, it's about money. As she started talking, the situation with the store was worse than I had imagined. The mother-in-law, the owner of the diner they ran, owned the land it was on. and they lived on the second floor, using it as both a residence and a shop. In the countryside, they had no competition, and the father-in-law's cooking was delicious, which kept the regular customers coming. However, since the only chef was the father-in-law, they couldn't open the store while he was hospitalized, and their income dropped to zero. Additionally, the mother-in-law owned an old apartment nearby, which was infested with termites, and they decided to demolish it. The cost of demolishing the apartment and other expenses piled up, leading to a debt of $200,000. Why did you let it get this bad, Mom? If it's like this, why not sell the land or the shop? How could you say that? Let go of our ancestral land so easily. We have loyal customers. Your father would be devastated. The only thing you're good at is cooking, so figure it out. I'm too old for this. Tom, it's okay. We'll work through this together. I'll help too. From that point, Tom and I focused on repaying the debt and revitalizing the diner, coming up with various plans. As it turns out, I had inherited $230,000 from my wealthy father who passed away 2 years ago. I offered to use that money for debt repayment. Hearing this, Tom thanked me repeatedly. Honestly, that money was important to me, and I had plans for it, but ensuring the peace of my in-laws was paramount. Tom was skilled not only in Western cuisine but also in Asian cuisines. Regular customers praised Tom's dishes as tasty as his father's. Thanks to that, local customers started returning to our shop. I used my previous work experience to improve parking, renovate the interior, develop new menus, and vigorously advertise online. Our diner gained popularity and stabilized its business, thanks to a newly opened tourist spot nearby. It was around this time that the father-in-law, who had been battling illness, passed away. We, the couple, were the ones by his side during his final moments. Tom's father murmured weakly, squeezing Tom's hand and trying to convey something with his fleeting strength. Don't worry, Dad. We'll protect the shop and Mom. And so Tom and I watched over my father-in-law as he passed away. On the day of the funeral, my mother-in-law looked exhausted. By her side, Tom's younger brother, John, and his wife, Karen, had been accompanying her the entire time. Because my in-laws weren't preparing for the funeral at all, we were the ones managing the arrangements and payments, busily going about the tasks. Catherine, who was always hardworking, sure has a different work ethic. It's amazing how she can work even in times like this. She's now the wife of the diner owner, right? It must be nice to have your own shop, huh? A drunk John said this. Tom, who had been treated coldly by his mother, had to leave home after high school without a dime. Thanks to the savings and the tuition secretly paid by his father, he managed to graduate from culinary school. On the other hand, John, who was pampered by their mother, apparently had no problems entering a private university. After graduating, he got a job in sales and met the beautiful Karen, whom he married. Now he works in a nearby city. But John and I graduated from the business department. To be honest, the level of my university was higher. John didn't seem to like this fact and would occasionally make snide remarks or mock Tom behind our backs. John and his family were not informed about the debt, and of course, they had no way of knowing how hard we had worked to pay it off and revitalize the shop. I was honestly irritated, but I decided to ignore him. I miss all this. Suddenly, a loud scream of no way was heard. The voice belonged to Karen. Rushing to where Karen was, we saw my mother-in-law in her mourning clothes, lying on the ground and convulsing. Her face was blue, pale, and she was frothing at the mouth. Seeing this, John, Tom, and I all panicked and immediately called for an ambulance. After being taken to the hospital by ambulance, we were told that Emily's mother had suffered a stroke. She had a history of high blood pressure, and it was possible that the stress from her husband's death and lack of sleep contributed to it. Fortunately, she survived without significant loss of speech ability, but paralysis remained, and she needed care. Despite her condition, she summoned us for a discussion. Now that the debt has been repaid and the shop is doing well, why not use the insurance money from your father and build a multi-generational home on the site of the demolished apartment? I can't live on the second floor anymore with my condition. I was honestly surprised by such a proposal from her, especially when she was the one in debt to others and without showing any signs of remorse. It was true that it would be hard for her to live above the shop in her current state. We lived in a nearby apartment and had rent to pay. If we expanded the second floor where she lived, we could potentially enlarge the shop as well. Tom's father's last words crossed my mind. Take care of the shop and your mother-in-law. He probably wanted to convey that sentiment, though. I had differences with my mother-in-law. I wanted to respect the kind words of Tom's father, who was so much like Tom. We convinced ourselves and decided to proceed with building the multi-generational home. We used the insurance money, but it wasn't enough. We had to invest almost all of our savings that we had accumulated for our dream. I'm sorry, Catherine. Because of this, we might have to give up on our dream, Tom said, looking saddened and defeated. Seeing his demeanor, I felt even more in love with him. It's okay. Our shop is doing well, and we can save up money again. We're getting a new house, so let's stay positive and move forward, I said, suppressing my feelings and trying my best to encourage Tom. The construction of the multi-generational home was commissioned to a newly established construction company, possibly through some connection of John's. This company was known for their trendy designs. We would have preferred a local and reputable construction company, but John and my mother-in-law forcefully made the decision. We were busy getting our previously closed shop up and running, so we provided our living preferences and let John and the others oversee the rest of the construction. Several months later, our multi-generational home was finally complete. True to the construction company's reputation, the house had a stylish exterior. The first floor was made barrier-free to accommodate my mother-in-law's needs. The second floor of the part we lived in had a state-of-the-art kitchen set up for Tom, and it looked very user-friendly. Then it was when we, my mother-in-law, Tom, and I, and John and his wife, gathered to celebrate the completion of the new house. Tom, can I talk to you for a moment? My mother-in-law, who was seated in a wheelchair, suddenly began to speak. At that moment, I had a bad feeling about her request. What if she's about to make an unreasonable demand? Well, I want John to take care of the shop, since John and his family will live with me and take care of me. You, Tom, can return to California. This was unbelievable. We paid off a debt of $200,000 with the inheritance I received, and Tom and I worked hard to rebuild the shop and even made it a popular place. We even built a new house according to my mother-in-law's wishes. After all we've done, she wants to push us out and leave everything to John. Just as I thought, it's become a pretty stylish house. Well, you can leave the rest to me, John said with a smirk. I'm so excited to cook in such a lovely kitchen, Karen cheerfully exclaimed. Wasn't that kitchen intended for Tom? What are they so excited about? Their attitude is just too much. So please don't come here anymore. I don't need Dad's old dishes, so you can take them back as a memento. They don't fit the modern style of this house. John grinningly brought over a box filled with old dishes that his father had collected. I felt dizzy. You have no more business here, right? Maybe it's time for you to leave. My mother-in-law's cold tone made me feel incredibly uncomfortable. I held back the urge to shout at her, took Tom's arm, and tried to leave. Just before exiting, I looked back and saw the sneering faces of my mother-in-law and John, which made me feel even worse. I'm so sorry, Catherine. I really am. They're not a family. I feel so pathetic the moment I saw the large tears that he rarely sheds. I made a big decision in my heart. Enough is enough. I'll just give them the shop and the house. But that alone won't calm my anger. I'll make sure they regret this. I won't hold back anymore. I can't forgive them any longer. With those thoughts and with my hand shaking with anger, I managed to calm myself and took out my smartphone from the pocket of my jacket. I made a call. The person who answered was Emily. Emily, listen, this has happened, so we're going to go through with that plan we discussed. I explained the unbelievable events that had occurred to Emily. After listening, Emily responded firmly, got it, you both are on board, right? Let's do it. Several months later, we opened a new restaurant cafe just a 10-minute drive from Tom's family home. Today was the opening party. We, as a couple, were present as the main chef and owner of the shop. Emily's family were well-known figures and entrepreneurs in the local area. Initially, Emily wanted to start a restaurant in this area, but since Tom's family was in the same business, she postponed her plans out of consideration. At a farewell party, Emily proposed, if you two ever decide to open a shop, I'll support you. Yes, our dream as a couple to start a restaurant cafe from scratch came true with Emily's support. Thanks to Tom's skills and my promotional activities, our restaurant cafe attracted a lot of attention and was even featured in the media before its opening. As we were chatting and laughing with Emily, each holding a champagne glass, the atmosphere suddenly shifted. What the heck is going on here? John and my mother-in-law suddenly intruded, raising their voices. Huh? What are you doing here? We're not supposed to have anything to do with each other anymore, right? Tom coldly brushed them off. Why wouldn't we care? setting up a restaurant so close to ours. What if our customers stopped coming because of you? The mother-in-law yelled in frustration. Isn't it your own fault if your business isn't doing well? Ever since Tom left, the taste has changed and you've made no improvements. Your regulars have drifted away, and your casual service has ruined your reputation, hasn't it? I retorted coldly. Who had always looked down on his younger brother and me was probably frustrated to be talked back to this way. His face turned beet red with anger. Then give us back the money for our house. What are you talking about? This the house Catherine and I built. Isn't it the house? It's unlivable. It seemed that the duplex house from the construction company John had recommended was a defective house with issues like warping and leaks. The very construction company vanished without a trace. Look at what's happened. We have recommended a reputable local construction company, didn't we? You forced us into using that other company. We have nothing to do with it anymore. The house is even in Mom's name now. On top of that, it seems Karen has left the house, hasn't she? Well, it's not typically possible to balance running a struggling diner in the countryside and taking care of your mother-in-law, you insolent woman. As John was about to lunge at me, Emily popped open a bottle of champagne, spraying John. But John, now soaked, and his mother stood there, mouths agape in shock. You reap what you sow. These are my precious friends you're talking about. You've brought this upon yourself by coldly treating the skilled pair. But thanks to you, we're a huge success. Anyway, it's a celebration here, so why don't you leave? Drenched in champagne, John and his mother turned on their heels and left, faces burning with humiliation. We apologized to our guests for causing a scene, but inside, I felt liberated. A year after the commotion, John and his mother, failing to manage their diner, had to shut it down. They continued to live in the flawed house, with John working part-time jobs while taking care of his mother. Regulars from their old diner who now visit our restaurant cafe updated us about them. We have been ignoring their calls for about 6 months. Today, our restaurant is thriving. Tom has numerous fans of his dishes and desserts, and the place is always bustling. Emily is also very happy with the state of things. There's another significant episode. While organizing the dishes left behind by my father-in-law, I found his will. The well read, Tom. Don't worry about the store or your mother. I'm sorry for everything until now. Move away and be happy with Catherine. And these antiques are for you. Have them evaluated by an expert. So this is what my father-in-law wanted to tell us in the end. He wished for our happiness and freedom with no intentions of burdening us with a store or his wife. Realizing once again his kind-hearted feelings for us, Tom and I shed tears together. And as per my father-in-law's advice, when we had the antiques appraised, we learned they were worth more than the amount spent on his wife. However, we chose not to sell those antiques. Instead, we carefully store them, using them as an altar in memory of my father-in-law, offering our prayers daily. And so our peaceful and serene days have once again returned.